3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Board of Education meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Tonight, we are using closed captioning on the YouTube live stream. Please speak clearly for those speaking during the meeting so the closed captions are as accurate as possible. Would everyone in the boardroom please stand with me if you're able to recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Thank you. So now I'm going to ask for a moment of silence. You know, we just came off the heels of Veterans Day. And so a moment of silence for all of our staff and students and community members that have served in the military. Thank you for your service. And so let's just have a moment of silence. Ms. King, may I have a roll call, please?
Peggy Mueller-Aragon. Danielle Gonzalez.
Here.
Barbara Peterson.
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Here.
Josefina Dominguez.
Here.
Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Here. So our first item is approval of the November 15th, 2023 Board of Education meeting agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the November 15th, 2023 regular board meeting agenda.
And I'll second. We'll have a roll call, please.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So our next item is approval of the minutes from the Board of Education meeting on November 1st, 2023, and the special Board of Education meeting held on October 25th, 2023. Do I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the Board of Education meeting on November 1st, 2023, and the special Board of Education meeting on October 25th, 2023.
I will second.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So our next item is public forum, and Secretary Jackson will lead us in the instructions and get us through forum.
All right. Welcome to our public forum guests. When you signed up to speak, you were asked to review the rules and expectations which our presiding officer will enforce. The New Mexico Open Meetings Act requires that our agendas specify in advance the items that will be discussed and voted on during the meeting. Therefore, public forum is not a dialogue among speakers and board members, but rather a chance to hear from our community. We will call participants to speak in the order they signed up, whether in person or virtual. Those here with us tonight will be asked to come to the microphone in the center aisle at the back of the room when your name is called. Online guests will stay in a virtual waiting room until it is their turn to speak. When it is your time, you will be escorted into the main meeting space, and we ask that you please turn on your audio and video. Once your speaking time is up, you will be ushered back into the waiting room. When you're finished speaking, you may choose to leave the meeting and watch it on live stream. We have set aside 45 minutes for public forum. Tonight, there are fewer than 22 speakers, which means you will each have 2 minutes to speak, to address the board. Please be concise and try not to repeat what others have said. Tonight, there are 2 speakers. Once your time is up, you'll be directed to complete your sentence quickly so that others may speak. You may not yield your unused time to another speaker. We will get to all the speakers tonight, but if you would still like to convey your message, you may email boarded@aps.edu. And if, for those of you who are here tonight, a representative from our service center is here to assist you. Right back there. Mr. Gonzalez, will you please introduce our speakers?
Thank you, board member. Our first speaker tonight is Ronald Jones. He is on Zoom. Mr. Jones, are you there?
I am here, sir.
Sir, you have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Sounds good. Hello, members of the Board of Education and everyone in attendance. My name is Ronald Jones. I am an Essential Related Service District employee, a school social worker. I'll get into it. I stand before you to try not to convince you to, well, actually, let me start over. My stance is based on the motion to support parity of compensation to retain school social workers. I stand before you to try not convince you to take upon our motion, but to see that this is an attempt to help retain and recruit qualifiable social workers in our district by fairly creating a salary matrix that accounts for difference in employees' education attainment, national board certification, as well as licensures maintained. As a former teacher, I am well groomed to the struggles and difficulties that teachers face, but having gotten to this point in my career as a social worker, as a school social worker, that is, I am well groomed to the strict requirements to be qualified and licensed professional that clinically serves students in our district, especially in regards to their mental health concerns, as well as providing clinical supportive consultation and or direct interventions to address social, emotional, and behavioral barriers to students and families in and out of the school setting. Coming back to APS district with my license and credentials as a social worker, as a school social worker, has given me a sense of appreciation that I was able to serve my community in a profound way. Since I've been back, I've been feeling the opposite. As I sit here with the experience as a school teacher and a master's in a license in social work, my morale has been kind of affected. As a social worker, we are tasked with serving our population, continuing our education, paying the board to keep our license, be clinically supervised, to stay ethical in our profession, all the while being paid the same as a bachelor level 1 teacher. I and many of my other colleagues, my social work colleagues, believe that this pay scale relating to social workers and mental health professionals need to be changed or amended. The amount of money to make our district more qualifiable versus the value you are getting with qualified professionals is undemanding. The district and board require all necessary components, but it appears we are not seeing our value through compensation. The current pay scale should be rectified, so that our district employees that service the underrepresented population can be more certified, competent, and skilled when working with Albuquerque students and families. Respectfully, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Cynthia Burnell Heron. Hope I was close.
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you so much. Members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you again. I am here because 2 years ago, we asked for help in discontinuing the career pathway system. While that is no longer a requirement for advancement, our current negotiated agreement continues to penalize APS, essential and related service employees, with an arbitrary 3-year requirement to move up between each level. We have advocated through the union for all essential and related service personnel to be paid based on their professional licensure. Today, I'm advocating for all LCSW social workers to be at the AT3 pay matrix. We have a motion through the union requesting that this be done through a memorandum of understanding, as this was something we hope to have in place this year. Our role specifically addresses the focused areas of social emotional learning. Priority 3, which focuses on student engagement, is directly related to the student's inability to access education due to any number of dysregulating factors. The Yazzie Martinez students are one of the main groups we serve through special education as licensed clinical social workers. We are independently licensed and do not require supervision. LCSWs are able to spend their full day assisting students. An LMSW social worker requires supervision, which typically costs the district about $15,000 per year and takes away time from both the supervisor and supervisee's duty day. Encouraging and incentivizing all social workers to complete their hours and take their exam to be LCSWs helps the district by ensuring we have highly qualified social workers, saves us money by not having to pay a supervisor, and increases the amount of time that can be spent providing direct services to students. LMSW social workers at any other district start at a minimum level 2 pay of the $60,000. This should be no different for school social workers here at Albuquerque Public Schools. Based on the data I have received as a FedRep, these changes would impact less than 10 employees, each receiving a $10,000 raise. And I know that that still adds up to a lot of money, but the boost in morale and being able to feel appreciated and valued by our district would be priceless and would create a lot more return for our value, because we know that many of our students are still having a lot of difficulties still from the pandemic. So thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you, ma'am. And we had one more speaker sign up right under the wire. I believe his name is Kevin Naranjo.
Go ahead.
So 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Naranjo. I am a father of a student who attends an APS school. I work for the Indian Ed Department, and I'm trying to understand action item 6.2, considering adopting Albuquerque Public School Board education resolution to collaboration with partners. I've been in the department for almost a year, and I believe we are working really well with the outside community, and I'm just trying to understand how this this resolution would have been beneficial to myself and our department to collaborate with this outside organization. And I found it a little concerning how it was presented to the board first, and our department was not communicated to about the ideas and plans of this outside organization. I believe it's very important to have outside entities to provide services to Native American youth, but my concern is, why was this not presented to our department? Because overall, our department was developed in 1973 to provide services to our Native American students. And if it's data that this organization wants, they could have asked our department for anything they wanted, and we would have been more than happy to collaborate with this organization and this resolution. But I guess my concern is how we weren't involved, and I just wanted to voice that. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. And board members, that concludes public forum.
Thank you. I really appreciate the speakers coming forward tonight. We had two very important topics. The social work issue is definitely one that is important. Obtaining that LCSW is no easy feat. That is a difficult licensure, and certainly one that requires a lot of maintenance to maintain. So thank you to our speakers for that. And also thank you to the gentleman for speaking out about the resolution and shedding some of your concerns about that. So we will take that up when we talk about that later in the agenda. So our next item, we're going to move right through our agenda, and then we're going to come back to the whole agenda. But our first item is student outcomes focused governance. And we're going to consider acceptance of the progress monitoring reports for goal 2 and the interim goals 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 that are focusing on math proficiency. We have Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, our Chief Academic Officer, and Dr. Chanel Segura, there she is, and Dr. Richard Bowman, our Chief Information and Strategy Officer. They're going to present the information to us. Before we do that, it's customary for us to ask under SOFG. The first questions are, do any of the board members have any concerns with the data? Do you have any concerns at all with what's been presented? Is it complete? And do we have enough of a report here so that we could keep moving forward? Is there any evidence that it's not meeting the requirements? Hearing none, I think we can go forward. So I always have to ask the question. It's the first way that we start. So welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. We're looking forward to having this conversation on this important goal. So we'll turn the floor over to you. And why don't we just go ahead and go through all of it, and then we'll save our questions for the end. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Thank you for having us this evening. We are happy to report on interim goal 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. I want to preface this by stating that each of these interim goals is separated by grade level. And so a lot of what's going well, what's not going well, and next steps are going to be applicable to each of the levels. And we are open also to feedback from you all in this process. So the first, our goal 2 for the district, the percentage of 8th grade students identified in the Yazzie Martinez decision, plus African-American students who demonstrate grade level proficiency or above on the state mathematics summative assessment will increase from 11.1% in May of 2023 to 21.1% in May of 2028. For interim goal 2.1, we're looking at the percentage of 6th grade students identified in the Yazzie Martinez decision, plus African-American students who demonstrate grade level proficiency or above in mathematics as predicted by iReady will increase from 16.6% in May of 2023 to 22.6% in May of 2026.
But on this one, their interim was at 16.6 and then 22.6 for the interim goal.
I'm going to ask my colleague to read through the stuff.
Madam President, members of the board, moving on to what is going well for interim goal 2.1. We recognize that all schools are working to ensure alignment of this interim goal to their 90-day plan at the middle school level. District-wide adoption of core mathematics for all 6th grade classrooms has been completed last spring, and we are in the midst of implementation this fall. District-wide adoption of IXL, personalized mathematic intervention, for 6th grade teachers to use throughout our school district. A middle school walkthrough process has been established at the middle school level to monitor and support the use of district-approved high-quality instructional materials and grade level standards in 6th grade classrooms. Middle schools are beginning to post scoreboards, which are tracking the progress of their work around their school-wide WIG, or wildly important goal, around this goal. Leadership development for all principals based on a whole group and individual coaching model with focus on relational capacity and instructional capacity towards goal 2 is underway and continues to be assessed, monitored, and deployed. All middle school principals participated in a 2-day illustrative math implementation workshop in anticipation of this HQIM rollout. District-wide illustrative math professional development administered for teachers with a plan for continued rollout continues. And the IXL math intervention utilization of licenses has increased from last year, where we had 5,000 licenses within the district, to 14,000 licenses at this time. Moving on to what is not going well. An inconsistent utilization of district-approved high-quality instructional materials and associated interventions are not evident in all 6th grade mathematics classrooms at this time. Currently, a district-wide walkthrough tool has not been developed. Critical actions in 90-day plans focused on increasing math outcomes with Yazzie Martinez plus African-American students are inconsistent. An inconsistent district-wide approach to scheduling mathematics intervention time within master schedules continues to be a challenge. And not all middle schools have posted a scoreboard detailing their progress of school-wide WIG alignment to goal 2. And in the back of the sheet, we see based on what isn't going well, what are we going to do and what are our next steps? What is our pathway forward? First, the district will provide adequate professional development for implementation of new and established core instructional materials and associated intervention programs. A district-wide walkthrough tool is in progress of being developed to be able to collect data to inform progress to Guardrail 3, which involves high-quality instructional materials, grade-level standards, and innovation in teaching. The coaching of principals will continue to ensure that critical actions in 90-day plans are focused on increasing math outcomes with Yazzie Martinez plus African American students. Develop a common district-wide master scheduling process to schedule mathematics intervention classes. And finally, all middle schools will have posted a scoreboard based on their WIG by the end of the school year, which is aligned to Goal 2. The information shared in what is going well, what isn't going well, and next steps is consistent in interim Goal 2.2 and 2.3, simply differentiated by the grade level. Therefore, at this time, we stand for any questions that you might have in regards to this progress monitoring report.
Thank you. So I think what we'll do first is we'll start, I'm going to just punt back. Does anyone still have any lingering technical questions just based on some of this? Did it spark anything for anybody in terms of a technical or a tactical question on the data or what was presented? Go ahead, Board Member Peterson.
I think this is probably a technical question. Have you gotten any feedback? I'm just curious how well iReady aligns with the curriculum that teachers are using, and if they see really clearly a link between how students are performing on iReady in comparison to their unit tests and the curriculum-based assessments.
So I would say that's not something that was part of the report, but it's something that we could look into for sure and ask our STCs.
I think it would be helpful. And it might also help get at some of the root cause analysis as well.
Any other technical questions? I do have just one for myself. Is you talked about the 14,000 licenses. What does that mean? Is that just the individual? Who are those users?
Madam President, members of the board, so you're referencing the 14,000 licenses for math intervention in the IXL, the intervention program for mathematics. The district purchased those licenses in anticipation of the core curriculum rollout this school year. So basically, the intent is to really have those licenses deployed throughout all of our middle schools to support especially the 15% of each school struggling math students. So really striking the equity involved in accessibility toward the intervention. I am happy to report, and I learned this afternoon, that although we reported 14,000, schools through their own budgets have also invested some of their school funds. So we're looking more at about 20,000 licenses system-wide. The 14,000 number that's listed on the document is what the district purchased through operational funds to support this intervention deployment.
So just for clarification, who's the user?
The student.
The student. Okay, that's what I was like, what does that mean? So the students have a license and they can utilize this on their Chromebook and they have access to, and what is it, just like additional math instruction?
That can, yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay,
And
all
that
right.
can take place within the classroom. It can also take place outside of the classroom.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead. Okay.
Just as a side, IXL is awesome. Like that's what I was using when I was a teacher while we were home for COVID.
Oh,
yeah. So in my 2 weeks of being a teacher. So my question is, and I think this is a Dr. Bowman question. So the the increase is from 11.1% to 21.1%. That's the 10-point increase that we asked. But I noticed that all of the interim goals only increased by 6%. So I am sure that there is a statistical reason for it. I'm just curious as to what that is, why the interims don't also increase by 10%.
Thank you for the question. I think I heard it from someone, which is that the interim goal is only over 3 years, whereas the overall goal is over 5.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, interim 3.
Okay. I'll go to,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so if I extrapolate it, it'll get to 10. Okay, thank you so much.
Board Member Gonzalez, I see your hand is up.
Great, thank you. Yes, I also had a technical question just about the status of the district-wide walkthrough tool. You're saying that it's in the process of being developed. What's the time frame for that?
Madam President, Member Gonzalez, members of the board, actually, it's a timely question because tomorrow we are testing the instrument. January, we are calibrating the instrument, and we have a target of March, which will be the actual district-wide walkthrough to get the second measure or data point for the Guardrail 3.
Okay. Any other questions, Board Member Gonzalez? That was it? Okay, I'll go to
Not
Board
technical.
Member Aragon. Do you have a question?
Are we just doing technical questions or
Yes.
strategic?
Yeah, just right now, if you have anything
Okay.
technical that's pending for you, none.
I
Okay,
don't.
thank you. Anybody else have any technical questions? Go ahead, Board Member.
I think this is a technical question.
Mhm.
How, in reference to what is not going well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth, the last bullet point, and the posting of the scoreboard, how will this public scoreboard impact Martinez, Yazzie, and African American students?
Madam Chair, Board Member Dominguez, we have done a book study, and it's almost done with our principals regarding the 4 disciplines of execution and achievement of our goals. And so part of the 4 disciplines is to have a scoreboard with your school determined WIG, wildly important goal, in being able to visually see what our goal is and progress toward that goal so that it is visible to staff, students, parents who come in. And within that, what we're asking principals is in their own data analysis, identifying those Yazzie Martinez student groups so that they know and the teachers know where the focused work needs to happen.
May I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So how do you anticipate this impacting or looking at this from an SEL perspective? Oh, bless you.
No, it's like
Social emotional learning.
Right, just
So for the WIG, I know, look, I'm a mess over here. For the WIG, for this specific goal, it's not focusing on SEL per se. It's focusing on specific math skills that we're trying to build up.
right, I guess just and just the posting, right? And I know we're after the math. I'm just curious how it impacts school culture. That's all.
so, and I think from that perspective of that question, it's kind of hard to like,
Yeah.
it's not a, I mean, it's sort of conjecture, right? It's like, Is it going to have impact for students? I mean, obviously what I think I see is that it's an overarching goal for the school itself. And so the intention is to build momentum, build excitement, build that kind of thing. So
Exactly what it is
okay,
building that.
so it's not like targeting, it's not like showing subgroups. It's not,
Absolutely not.
it just is
No.
showing where the school
Overall.
stands as a whole.
The
Okay.
overall grade levels,
Mm-hmm.
whatever
Mhm.
that looks like, depending on what the school determines.
Mm-hmm.
And it's building that excitement around mathematics in the
Okay.
school.
All right. Okay, so any other technical questions before we jump into some strategy? So I see none. So I'll go on to Board Member Mueller-Aragon because I know you were ready with a strategic question. So we'll have you go first.
Thank you. So my question, I'm looking at, the growth for the, all other students and then the Yazzie Martinez African American students. So I'm seeing like incredible growth from beginning of the year to the end of the year with the all other students. Where in 2018-19 it was a 19% increase, in 21-22 and 22-23 it was like a 20% increase. And then when we look at Yazzie Martinez, we just see in 18-19 a 13% growth, which was great. And then we see an 8.8 in 21-22 and an 8.5 in 22-23. So what I would like to know is, when you're looking at all other students, what can you tell me about those other students and the difference in growth between them and the Yazzie Martinez and African American students?
Board Member Mueller-Aragon, can you please repeat the question?
So what can you tell me when you're looking at all other students and then you're looking at our, targeted population, and you're seeing the growth, such a big growth with the other students, but then you're not seeing that with the Yazzie Martinez. So what are you learning? What have you learned from all the other students? Maybe when it comes to root causes. I'm not sure. I just want to know what you've learned from all other students that maybe could help with our Yazzie Martinez and African American students.
Board Member Mueller-Aragon, thank you for the question. I guess I'm wanting a little more clarification with respect to what we have learned. Are you talking more of like a data perspective, or are you talking more of a have we done a study inside of the schools on the different subgroups to try to observe any differences amongst them?
Right, like what's going well with the all other students that maybe is not going well, and of course that would be at a school level, and maybe you haven't dug into that yet, and that's fine. It might be something that would be important to do, because we always want to know, why is this group doing so well, and why is their growth just it's very steady that it's been around 20%, but we're not seeing that with the other students. So I just want to know what you might think.
Madam Chair and Board Member Mueller-Aragon, I think what we see from the data is that we do have, when I think of our Yazzie Martinez subgroups, it's a larger sample than all other students. And so we can definitely dig into that a little bit more. But what we're seeing is the difference in outcomes between the two groups. And so what we're learning is that we have to do better, and we're working toward getting better to get these outcomes where they need to be. And but we can definitely look into what all other students, what that composition entails, and and see what some of those root causes may be.
Right. And it is a smaller, it is a smaller group, so it wouldn't be as difficult as looking at maybe such a large group. And then when you're kind of looking at the the proficiency rates, and you're expecting in the next 3 years that for the Yazzie and African American students, that it will grow by 6 percentage points. So are you expecting that the same thing is going to happen with the all other students? That they're going to also grow by 6 percentage points? Or are you expecting, because of what's gone on in the past, that growth will be greater? And also that would go back to the why.
So Board Member, thank you for the question, Board Member Mueller-Aragon. So I would say that this particular goal there's not a specific goal for the non-Yazzie Martinez plus African Americans. However, it might not be unreasonable to, this is just conjecture, that whatever improvements in instruction or other, whatever improvements in instruction that help certain students would also help the other students. What you're seeing here with what Dr. Segura mentioned with the wildly important goals and the disciplines of execution is to generate that energy inside the school campus about improved academic achievement for everyone. So while there's not a particular number, I would anticipate that it would also increase.
Right, because we're obviously not going to stop teaching those all other students. So we're expecting that we're going to keep doing whatever's been going right for them is going to continue. So we're assuming that we're going to continue, they'll continue in the same positive direction. And so if that does keep on going on, and we want to see that gap between those all other students and the Yazzie students, we want that to shrink. We want it to ultimately disappear, and that would be a hope. So we really do need to find out. I'm assuming that that's something that you all are going to be looking at. What is working for that group that may be able to work for this other group? Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Gonzalez.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the presentation and the data. I know that we're still pretty early on in both our tracking and our strategies. So I'm looking forward to hearing more as these strategies begin to be implemented. I do have a question that's sort of global, related to the goals, guardrails, and progress monitoring. So I'm going to start by reading briefly from the September 2023 issue of the Albuquerque Teachers Federation Union News. It begins with an explanation of the goals and guardrails, and then reads, "I have heard from many that they're feeling ever increasing pressure to show measurable outcomes for these new goals and guardrails after a mere month of school. This is already causing stress, which is cascading downhill from the board through APS administration to principals, and which soaks educators and pools in our classrooms. The goals and the guardrails are infiltrating the 90-day plans and staff meetings, and they're impacting individual PDPs, or professional development plans. So once again, educators and our students are treading stagnant water in a deep pool of test-based accountability." So I think the claim here is that the board setting the measurable goals and the district developing the strategic plan with the 3 of the 4 strategic priorities being around clear expectations, rigorous instruction, and engaged students is leading to a culture of high stakes accountability, leading to an environment where there's extreme pressure to produce results, and essentially a harmful culture. Versus actually creating clarity and providing support and creating conditions for the improved teaching and learning. And so sort of the first question is there any truth to this claim that we and the district have created this dangerous culture of testing Because if so, that would be highly problematic in general, but especially for the kids who were furthest from opportunity, who we're most trying to serve. And so my question is, what strategies do you have in place to stem this challenge of high stakes accountability? Or if that's not the case, that's not happening, if you could just respond to that.
Madam Chair, and Board Member Gonzalez, we are working really hard to align, and that is something that will be working from the goals to the strategic priorities to 90-day plans and to teacher PDPs, so that the work becomes clearer. I like to quote Brene Brown, "Clear is kind." And when things are clear, people have direction. It's not chaotic, it's not misaligned. So we are working really hard to create that alignment so that it's clear for people. One thing about, high stakes testing, there's certain assessments that we just have to give. Federal and state testing is what it is. Beyond that, teachers are utilizing formative assessments within their classrooms every day as their choice. To determine where their kids are, what next steps need to happen, how to differentiate within their classrooms, what materials and resources they need to be able to access grade level standards. And so I would disagree that it's a negative culture of accountability. I look at it as reciprocal accountability of what do our students need and what do our teachers need in order to teach and learn at optimal levels, and how do we as a district get away from the whirlwind of trying to do everything to focusing in on what's important and getting the outcomes that we need.
Do you have a follow-up, Board Member Gonzalez?
Well, yes, just briefly. I mean, what can be done around this claim then? Is there an opportunity through maybe the SQT or otherwise just the process of developing scope and sequence? Just how can we help stem this concern? Whether it's, well, I'll just stop there. How can we help stem this to make sure that it's not spreading?
Madam President, Member Gonzalez, members of the board, thank you for the question. We are meeting with the SQT team every other week, and we have been doing that for the past several years. We are working at instructional frameworks, scope and sequence, as well as units of study. We have a pretty dynamic exchange every other week. I feel like it's a healthy environment in which we've collectively created to have honest conversations about this and the other aspects of the work. So I am optimistic that that will continue moving forward, and that we will continue to have that as a mutually agreed upon mechanism to work together to move the work forward.
Great, thank you. That's reassuring. My last question is just about the middle school task force, which seems relevant to this particular goal. And so I just wanted to understand, how are the findings or the recommendations, the outcome of that task force being implemented in concert with this goal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Board Member Gonzalez, thank you for the question. We are, as we said in our next steps, looking at how to implement some of the mathematical intervention that needs to happen at our middle schools by building that into strategically the master schedules. And I think one thing that we have to think about as a district, we have to do something differently at middle school, because it's not working the way that we need it to work. And I think I want teachers and principals to know, like, what can we do differently within a master schedule? We have 6 periods in the school day. How do we shift some of that? How do we say, you know what, Thursday afternoons, we're going to focus on mathematical practice. We're going to, focus all our energy on that. So when we look at one of the recommendations, which was flexible scheduling, that is part of the next steps that we're going to take to look at middle school schedules to say, how do we build in that time for our kids to have access to the acceleration needed to get them closer to grade level standards? Also, looking at the culture and some of the fear that families and the community have around middle school. We see a strong decline in enrollment in the transfer to middle school from elementary in our district. And so looking at the why behind that, when I ask people about that, they just, they say we're nervous. It's scary. It's different. And so, we have worked to say, when you come into the schools, I mean, they're wonderful. There's wonderful adults helping kids, guiding them to where they need to be. So we have looked potentially, as we're working on our calendar, which you all will be able to see soon as options, how do we build in like a 6th grade jumpstart day to get our 6th graders into the middle schools for a day, to walk their schedules, to alleviate some of that anxiety, and to get families onto campus as well, so that they can see the facility, they can meet the teachers, and not have it be so intimidating on that first week of school. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Thank you, Board Member
Thank you.
Gonzalez.
And I don't have any other questions right now.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Board Member Tapia Romero, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. Board Member Jackson?
Yes, I think I have 2 questions. The first is just a follow-up on the what is not going well. I circled 3 inconsistents throughout the document. It says this is inconsistent, that is inconsistent. So my question is, what is the strategy? And following up on the SQT, I think maybe we could go a little bit more in depth as to what is the strategy to lessen the inconsistency, and to are there any consequences to there being inconsistency throughout the usage of the high quality instructional material, as an example?
Madam President, Member Jackson, members of the board, thank you for the question. A couple of things I'd like to mention that will help minimize the inconsistencies. I'm very hopeful and kind of excited about these things, actually. The first one is, as has been mentioned, we are taking seriously the work of Guardrail 3 to really monitor, keep the thing, and have common language around HQIM and standard grade level standards. Tomorrow, we are testing the instrument that we have worked very hard to perfect. I'm really excited about tomorrow. I'm even more excited about taking that instrument to calibration in January and using it in March, so that we are able to collect a second point of data to bring back to you in the second progress monitoring for Guardrail 3. So that is going to breed, I hope, throughout our system, common language in this is what we're looking for. This is what we're doing. And I think that will go a long way. The other thing that I like to mention is, you may have seen and heard, we are, I have a dry throat.
Need water?
You may have seen and heard that we have district directed professional development days. And these days have been targeted around supporting our teachers around the use of high quality instructional materials. Not just randomly at one school or another school, but collectively as a district unit, working together with English teachers, language arts teachers, math teachers, and really doing that, not just one hitting it, but over time, professional development over time, where people are able to learn, try, adjust, come back, hear from others, perfect the work of the professional development and what it's aiming to get to them. Finally, to your point about what is the work of SQT, we recognize and we celebrate that no material will ever take the place of a highly qualified teacher. With that said, we feel a very strong responsibility as a district to provide as many tools as possible for our teachers to really engage in their art form. And that is why we wish to be consistent through SQT in providing our teachers a tool with the units of study that will connect to the HQIM, but also give a suggested pathway, scope, and sequence of how they can use the materials to teach the given class. So we are working on that intentionally and deliberately. It's exciting work. We are listening to each other. I believe we're hearing each other. And I think that's important for us to work together in partnership to really make this not a false start, but exciting work that will energize the organization through our goals and guardrails.
Thank you for that. If it's okay, it actually brought up two questions as clarifications. The instrument that you said you're hoping to bring back the next time we discuss goal 2, goal 2. The instrument is not particular to goal 2. There is an instrument being developed for all the goals, correct? Yes.
Correct, under guardrail 3.
Okay, so we will have an instrument. So basically you're giving us more data. You're collecting more touch points so that we can accurately understand what's going on.
We're trying hard to keep up with our progress monitoring journey.
Yeah, which might actually help to answer Board Member Muller-Aragon's question of how are you looking at all of this, between the different groups, and from that data, will you be able to extrapolate some root causes? Okay, so thank you for that. As far as the particulars of the, sorry, let me pull so that I can be specific, of the Appendix J29, the standards-based teaching within the negotiated agreement. Are there anything that you're potentially looking, well, never mind, I guess I can't ask that question. Forget that. Forget that question. So that will bring me to my other question, which was, I'm looking at the what is going well. And again, they're consistent. I see a lot of leadership development for our principals and professional development. And can you just, again, I think so that we can kind of come to center, remind us how those are aligned to the strategic plan with all of this professional development? And I mean, it seems like it's a lot for the principals. And so how is that being filtered down to the main thing being the main thing?
Madam President, Member Jackson, members of the board, thank you for the question. It's a good question, and it is a lot, but we're trying to chunk it and we're trying to align it in a way that the principals are able to get the information to engage in their role. So for example, we're working to get the PD to the principal first so that they're able to see how the curriculum works, how they can observe, support, coach, monitor the use of, and before we give it to our teachers so that there's common language and there's a through line between the different role groups within the schools and within the organization. That has been something, to be very honest, that our principals have asked for. They've asked for intentionality behind the way we proceed. There is, I think, I hope, connecting of the dots with every passing day. We are having to work on the great, and sometimes that means letting go of the good, and really focusing in on what we've been charged with here, with the work, aligning it to the school 90-day plans. And that's where you really see the synergy and the light bulbs on top of people's heads come on, because they're able to make this specific to their school. And that's when we talk about scoreboards or when we talk about these different initiatives, it's really nothing more than an illustration, a reminder that this is what we're doing. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm encouraged to hear that there's strategy and alignment behind everything, right? Because you read this and you think, oh, that's a lot of stuff that's going on. So I'm encouraged to know that there is yeah.
And just one more thing, as we learn this semester, we also anticipate the calendar for next year. So we're taking notes and we're saying, okay, some things are working, some things maybe didn't work. And how can we adjust to produce a better recommendation for a calendar or a PD schedule that makes sense? Because I think we want to be transparent and honest that we are also learning as we engage in the work.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think those were my questions. I appreciate the answers.
Board Member Dominguez?
Your questions are great. It prompted another question though. In one of your responses, Dr. Gonzalez, how are you bridging the SQT effort and the PD to principals? Because the way it was explained, I immediately thought, what, is there a separation? So I want to get clarity about that.
Madam President, Member Dominguez, you raise a good point. I think that is a next level of work. Right now, as the work is established in the current MOU in which we are functioning under with the current negotiated agreement, is a call to action for the district to work with ATF on units of study. So the principal link is something that before we get too deep into the revision of the work, because I would like to remind the board that we do have units of study that have been used and have been worked on, and a lot of standards aligned units of study. We're working to revise those using the new HQIM, keeping fidelity to understanding that these are tools based on the standards. So your point about working with principals and making the principal connection is one that we will take back and continue to discern.
Thank you.
Or do you still have another question, Board Member Jackson, or you want to come back later?
No, she kind of was getting to what, yeah.
Okay, we'll come back. So, Board Member Peterson, let's go to you, and then we'll go to Board Member Dominguez and her questions. Okay.
Okay. So I'll thank Board Member Gonzalez and Mueller Aragon, because those were the two questions that I had submitted. And so I appreciate the answers about how the task force work is moving forward. And I welcome hearing anything more in depth on that one, because it really addressed things like family groups, cross-curricular instruction that's more engaging. And so I know you started answering. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Board Member Peterson. Part of the middle school task force recommendations was to shift to that smaller learning community family model. Something that's challenging with that is that there's kind of a floor of what you need as far as enrollment to be able to do that well. What we're seeing is the decline in enrollment in middle school, which means that we have many schools with lower enrollment, which creates challenges in trying to make those smaller learning communities work, just due to lack of resources, teachers. So that is something that we absolutely know is a best practice but we have to look, I think, a little bit stronger at how do we build, you know, how do we get our elementary school families and students to opt into our middle schools so that our enrollment can be higher, so that we can start building these best practices within the middle schools, because right now it's a struggle. So yes, it's a recommendation because we know it's what's good for kids and for teachers, but it's a struggle. And then you add layers of students who need to take, ELD, special education, that all is a challenge to create, what is the word I'm looking for? Cohorts of students or families of students that are peer. That's the word, peer families. There's some cross mixing happening because of that. So yes, we know that's a best practice. We know that that's where we want to go, but it's going to take a big culture shift at the middle school level for us to build upon that.
So this sort of leads into the next part of my question. It's probably appropriate because a future agenda point for this evening is the legislative agenda. And so I'm curious because and this goes back to root cause, that there are definitely, and I see appropriately, real focus on the instruction, specifically around math, specifically within classrooms. But clearly, when we start looking at root causes, it's not just as simple as, well, follow this textbook because it'll solve the problems. And that comes down to really looking at those root causes. And we do have one model. I mean, just thinking about the community school framework. And that means resources. So I'm sort of curious what you're hearing back from schools as they delve deeper into root cause analysis and really looking, because it does mean resource allocation, and what that really means for what we need to prioritize when it comes to budget, how we need to look at focusing resources, and what it means as we delve deeper into what are those conditions that make some groups of students struggle.
Is that a question?
It is a question. It is a question. Solve the problem for us. And it's it's like all of these questions around strategy. It's the beginning of a discussion. It's not a finite, simple answer. If it was a simple answer, we would have solved it long ago.
I think the work is ongoing. And I think as a board, you all have established some really strong goals and guardrails. And so it's a shift in culture for the district as well, and having to look at where we now have a roadmap. We now have, goals in place, and how do we, as unique individual school communities, contribute and build upon those goals. So it is ongoing. We look at different schools and their challenges. I know that our associate superintendents, they know their schools very well, and they're working really hard with principals and staff to, learn to let some things go. We can't do it all, and to really hone in on what is the focus for our elementaries, what is the focus for our middle schools and our high schools. So I think you all have given us a great target, and so we're trying to backwards plan and how to achieve those goals. But yeah, the root causes, each school is looking at their own root causes based on their 90-day plans of what does that look like, what's getting in the way of the work and of progress, and they're working hard. And I think what we've seen a shift in that could be misinterpreted as a different type of accountability is that we have looked at 90-day plans, PDPs, as compliance documents versus tools to increase, tools for improvement on every level. And I think that that has been a shift because we are now pushing with those plans. We're connecting the dots with staff and support and resources for those plans. So there is a greater accountability for principals and their 90-day plan teams to really come together to determine what are those next steps and what is impeding the work and how do we overcome that. So I think that has been the culture shift of here's documents we have to complete to comply versus here's tools that we can use in our daily work to guide the work.
Thank you for that. And I mean, I just keep thinking about the Ozzie Martinez decision, and some of it had to do with resources and sufficient funding. Some of it really addressed deeper curricular ideas of what's really culturally appropriate, what really addresses who our students are, and looking at that more deeply. And I think it's really critical that we keep that in mind as well as we look at the specific content area instruction too. And I am delighted to hear the thinking that's going on around collaboration and PD, because I mean, we hear from teachers, and when it's teacher directed, it's meaningful. And so I'm still worried about elementary. Got to figure that out. But that's all for now. And thank you for the work that you're doing.
Board Member Dominguez.
So I guess, I have last week's, meeting much on my mind. And I don't want to make it strictly about Roosevelt Middle School, but Roosevelt Middle School in terms of a system, right? So what are we doing as we are going forward, next steps? Because I'm looking for evidence that we're thinking about this to remove barriers to schools like Roosevelt, who they applied for a magnet STEAM status, and for whatever reason, they thought it was a done deal, and it's not. And so those sorts of barriers make it really hard to compete, to hold on to kids. And so I'll leave it at that. What are we doing? What is the plan for next steps to help our schools, mid-schools, who are seeking to be innovative?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Board Member Dominguez, unfortunately, I was unable to attend last meeting, but I think in general, we have to do a better job at promoting the greatness that is happening at our middle schools so that it's evident within the community. I'm not quite sure about the STEAM. Is that a state? Did they apply to state or?
No, it's within APS.
Okay, so I need to learn more about that. I'm not quite sure what that.
I mean, they applied for, I think it's through the Office of Innovation, Magnet. But what I'm getting at is, yes, removing these internal obstacles, especially where there's motivation.
Right.
And my understanding is, we want to link this particular school to its elementary, they're going to apply, but don't hold up the whole train because of one piece, right? Our mid schools need to be supported. And if it's happening, typically, if it's happening one place, more than likely it's happening just system-wide.
Do you have any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to go with the question and then I'll come back, okay? To everybody else that haven't asked a question yet. I'm just wondering if, we're talking about a strategy to definitely make our middle schools. I mean, it seems from a systems perspective, we need to do something with middle school. I hear this a lot. We've already had a task force. We've got some recommendations. And I hear what you're saying is that part of it's also, you've got to have a floor. I mean, I heard a lot of barriers about why we can't get there. So I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to start with a demonstration somewhere? Is there a place that we can at least look at this so that we can push something that's different and it feels like we're at least studying and we're making some steps rather than just waiting on having all the perfect conditions?
Madam President, members of the board, I think we can look at some of our higher enrollment middle schools to see what can really happen there. Because when we have greater enrollment, we can create more robust programming. We can do the best practices. The part of the task force as well, recommendation was to have sufficient support staff. A full-time counselor, a full-time nurse, a full-time social worker. When we're spread so thin over many campuses, you get a 0.5, you get a 0.5. And it's really challenging. So I think, looking at that, and I don't want to say APS is the only district with a middle school, issue. It's nationwide. Middle school is challenging. And there's many unfortunate negative perceptions about middle school from families. But we do have great middle schools, and it is, I don't think we look at it as we're telling you all, these are challenges that we are working on. But we are working really hard to look at the great things that are happening in our middle schools, and we need to do a better job at that. We really do.
And I suppose my question is just really from the perspective of time is of the essence, because if you're that parent who has a child in 5th grade this year and you're looking down the road of where am I going to go, we really what I fear is the conversation that we're having tonight really just tells them we're not ready. We're still working on it. It's not there. So we do need to highlight where there is greatness, because I agree there's probably pockets of greatness, and how do we do that and how do we do more of that? That's absolutely important. I'm not saying it's broken everywhere, but we do have a problem, right? And I hear what Board Member Dominguez is saying is because we have a very engaged community in the East Mountains, absolutely, and we have students that are in a wonderful APS magnet that need to have a middle school home, whether it's East Mountain Middle School or it's us. They're going to need that middle school. And so it seems like we're in a prime spot to figure out that problem, because it's not easy to get from the East Mountains to anywhere else. But I digress, because that's not what we're talking about. But so my other question is, have we had any schools come forward with a request for a realignment, or have an example of a realignment that has kind of sparked your interest just from this first semester at the middle school level?
Madam President, members of the board, yes, along several different lines.
Okay.
A couple that come to mind is, how can we schedule middle school differently? What does that look like from a intervention point of view, from a core curriculum point of view, even from an enrichment point of view?
Okay.
So we've had middle schools excited about that conversation. We've had middle schools very excited about the whole notion of how do we do SEL well within the curriculum and outside the curriculum at the middle school level. And we've also had middle schools approach us in regards to, I don't want to blur goals because I think that's a thing, but how do we connect to career connected learning at the middle school level in anticipation of high school? So there's a lot of outside the box thinking. Today we had curriculum board with our elementary, middle, and high school assistant principals. And that's always a think tank for the work and always leave energized from those types of gatherings.
Okay. And I guess is the question around the SQT work, you know, in terms of aligning with, you know, that is that happening like at grade level? So when you do an SQT, is it like middle school SQT? And we're thinking, or is it just in general? Okay, because that part kind of threw me off a little bit. Oh God, I lost my train of thought there because I had a question on it. Now I just can't gather it. So I'm going to stop for a minute and it'll come back to me, but because it's thinking about the strategy around sort of bringing that staff together, because I was really curious about that. Does anyone else have another strategic question or just a question in general?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So when you're discussing, you mentioned something, board member Peterson brought it up about the task force and like cohorts, families. Was that what you were talking about within middle school? Can you just expound on that a little bit? Because this is the first I'm hearing of it. Is it something like what they do at the academy where you go in and you're in your families?
I'm not quite sure about the academy, but I can say that in a family model at the middle school is you have your core teachers, your English, math, science, and social studies with the same group of students that rotate throughout the day. And so you might have 2 families or 3 families or 4 families at each grade level, but you're connected. You're kind of within the same group of kids, not identical, but you're shifting within a greater group of kids with those 4 teachers.
Okay. And the expected outcomes from working within a family is?
So when your teachers are all working with the same kids, it's easier to collaborate. It's easier to problem solve. You know, if students are struggling in this classroom, oh, well, Courtney is fantastic in my classroom. What do you mean she's, you know, being disruptive in yours? And so then it's the teachers that get to talk and pull Courtney aside and say, hey, why are you behaving that way in her class? You never behave like that in mine. And it's kind of this team of working together with those like students so that it's common. And it creates, instead of just, you know, all students going to all different math teachers, English teachers, it's a smaller learning community. So there's greater cohesion.
And if I may just add one more thing, because we're talking about this. This is the subject of my dissertation. Totally go and take a look at it. But it's a way of creating a small school feel inside of a large urban school.
Yeah.
So that instead of a student seeing, you know, a different batch of kids every hour, they see the same group of kids over the course of the day, and it helps them build those pro-school. It helps them build school-based social relationships. It also simplifies the work on the teachers, because for the teachers to understand the kid, they will be able to see other teachers who have that same kid, and you can talk about 2 or 3 kids at the same time because you share them, and you're not, as a teacher, you're not having to go and hunt the other 5 teachers in their schedule because you know that you're all together. So it's a really cool thing if you can make it work.
I can't resist adding, just as a teacher, you know, I do this sometimes as I'll pull seniority. Even in elementary school, when you have less than 30 kids that you're seeing, when you have 2 adults that are working with those same 30 kids, the insights that you get, what one adult finds out about family crises, about what's going on at home, about, did you notice this disruption with this, having more adults looking at the same child gives you incredible insight, even when you have less than 30 kids. So I can't imagine what it's like if you have 160 on your caseload. There's just no way.
It's mad.
Especially
And so if we talk about social emotional well-being, having those small groups of kids with more adult eyes on them is I mean, what you see is entirely different from when it's just one adult in isolation trying to solve all the problems.
And I can understand why that difficulty of the floor and how many, that you need to have, because it's also predicated on how many teachers you need to have in terms of those groups to be able to do that. I believe my daughter had the opportunity to experience that kind of middle school in Austin. Because she was in a middle school that, and I specifically remember it and recall it for the 6th grade class for sure. Because with that 6th grade and that transition from elementary into the 6th grade, having that small group, it was very beneficial. I don't remember it going threaded all the way through middle school. I think it was tiered, but definitely I do recall that 6th grade year.
I am a proud graduate of the Trailblazer family at Capshaw Middle School.
I know. I am sure if I asked my daughter, she'd tell me what family she was with.
And I can't resist either, madam. If you talk about families and you're looking at it from the instructional point of view, the opportunity for at least 4 teachers to look at common student work.
Yes.
Cross-discipline, cross-content, make suggestions, feedback to students. Cross-content is a powerful thing because all of a sudden the student is working toward the same thing in 4 or 5 different classes.
I would recommend that something come forward to the board recommending for us to at least start that and demonstrate that so that we can figure out what the cost is and how we're going to do that, because it does seem like it's a relevant model. We know that it works, but we can't get there if we don't know how we're going to have to align our resources to do it. And instead of just sort of wishing or thinking this would be great, I think in order for the board to be a partner in that, we'd have to know what we're looking at and what's the cost and what would it take to do that. Because otherwise we're just talking about something that we're wishing for. I really would love to see the opportunity to demonstrate that. Let's get it started, at least demonstrate that we can do it and show the benefit of that. Go ahead.
So I'm thinking even back to my John Adams days. And I am pretty confident we had something very similar to that. Because I'm thinking of the group that I stayed with my certain teachers, like it was like a little pod. So where did we lose? Because we did it, because I'm like, and I think Danielle because Danielle was with me at John Adams, like think about like, where did we lose, I guess, the method or, the process? Because we should be able to go back and duplicate what we did then. Because I'm like, you're saying all this and I'm like, we did this. It was a long time ago, but we did it.
And Madam Chair, Board Member Tapia Romero, it can be done, but it requires certain foundational resources and components. And when we're faced with some, the ESSER cliff is right ahead of us. We're seeing a decrease in enrollment as a district. It's more difficult to create those models when the resources are stretched thin across so many schools.
And Board Member Domingos, go ahead.
Well, and yet one feeds the other, because if we don't make the initial investment that will attract these. Yeah. And then we make decisions as a board that also make it hard on mid-schools. I won't name the school that is going to undermine enrollment. And so yes, I have an urgency, and I'm trying to be patient, make it a patient urgency, but it is an urgency that we do exactly what is being discussed up here. And I will say, I know this focuses on mid-school, but extending it into populations that struggle, and freshmen in high school that are in crisis have been since 37 years ago when I was at Highland High School, and we're still having the same conversation. Yes, there's got to be a way to make this work.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Yes, I just wanted to offer up that I think we've shifted away a bit from asking our smart questions and toward suggesting solutions. So I wanted to move to consider acceptance of progress monitoring report for goal 2, interim goals 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, focusing on math proficiency.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I just have one more item. I just want to state that I caught my memory on this, because I know that if we want to change middle school, we're not going to simply do it by just monitoring a math goal. So I think we know it's bigger than that. So thank you for that. I do also want to thank the staff for the report and the work that's going to it, and reminding the community too that we're just starting. So this was a great baseline for where we are. Hopefully next reports really build on that a whole lot more. So one more closing comment. Go ahead.
I have a question. Well, I just want to point out that I did have a request for data that I will continue to bring up. And it is about getting granular on the 6th through 8th grade iReady data. I asked, which students are the data talking about, especially as it relates to Martinez Yazzie protected groups and African Americans under special education. Those groups are disaggregated out. But within those groups, within the special ed, I want to know what those results are for Martinez Yazzie African American students. Same thing for Title I. And I know that this is possible because I spoke to a data person after the last meeting, and SAPR is a little bit difficult, especially when you don't know it as well as the data department. So I'm just going to mention that my questions are going to continue to come up. And
okay, go ahead, Dr. Bowman.
A brief response. So in this case, I would say thank you for the question, Board Member Dominguez. In that SAPR, in this case, was not necessarily difficult. It's just the information that you're asking for in the breakdown was not available. However, for the iStation, which was your previous request, I believe our board services office received it right before this meeting, and so I anticipate that it would go out to you. For your current request with respect to iReady, we'll take it to our data folks, and hopefully you'll be able to have that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and we have a second.
I have something real quick.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I just want to, again, just kind of go back to the demographics that are, they seem to be just continually doing well. And I want to make sure that we try to look for those root causes. And I really do want to know what we've learned from them. If you keep looking at the material, keep looking at all the data that we have, and we look at the all other students consistently are doing well, the Asian students, the white students, those that are not, part of the taxpayer funded lunches, they're always doing well. So it's like, what are like the factors that seem to predetermine proficiency? I mean, those scores are we see them over and over again, and it seems like they are predetermined in those demographics. So is, family income and family parental educational attainment affecting the scores? So I think these are all things that I would like to have answers to, because we keep seeing the same thing over and over again. And I don't like that we could say that proficiency levels are predetermined by these. So I just wanted to point that out again. Thank you.
All right, so it's not, you don't want a response back, you just want them to continue to working on that, correct? Or you want
Well, I mean, I don't think that we've got through to what the root causes are. I don't think that there was really any answers for that, Madam President. So, and obviously that's concerning to me. It's like when we're trying to accept this monitoring report, does reality match the vision? Of course it doesn't, because of our, is there growth toward the vision? I don't know that there is. And how would Scott, Superintendent Elder, be able to create a strategy and a plan to cause that growth if we don't even know what the root causes are? So I don't feel confident accepting this monitoring report based on everything that we've learned through SOFG.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so it's like understanding how that data is driving some of the decision making, right? Because if we know that these students continue to struggle, how are we using that data to drive decision making at this point with the district and the work that you're doing? I mean, we're doing a lot of professional development. We've got a tool out there. We're using, WIGs, and, we've got lots of strategies, but how are we using this data with the groups that are not performing well, where there is the gap? How are we using that to drive some of the decision making?
Madam Chair and members of the board, I think that is our daily work.
Yeah.
There is no silver bullet. When we look at students who achieve at higher levels, I think those are students that have less adverse childhood experiences. And so our job is to mitigate that through things like community schools, allocating resources appropriately so that those challenges and barriers can be overcome with our support. So I don't think that there's a silver bullet. I think we're very aware of, certain groups that outperform other groups. And our efforts as an entire district and community is, how can we support that? How can we, embed community schools in our schools to be able to support all of the things? How do we create, AVID programs where students are getting access and awareness to college and career readiness? I think there's so much that goes into this. It's not just one thing that is going to fix it. And if there is, we'll take it. I mean, I think the entire nation would want, insight on that. But we're dealing with human beings, and they come from different backgrounds. And as a district, I think it's important that we acknowledge that, but that we work on a daily basis to address those needs and to create programming, to create support systems to help kids be able to achieve and not rely on the reason why they can't, but be able to have the supports and resources so that they can.
Thank you. And I know it's difficult because it's the majority of our students. And so I appreciate your response, Dr. Segura, because it is all of those things. I think it's going back to all of our goals and our guardrails, especially around with, equitable funding and access to wraparound support services and so on and so forth. So I'll thank you for that. And I think what we're going to do is, we do have a motion and we do have a second on the floor. Can we have a roll call vote on accepting this report?
Peggy Mueller-Aragon,
No.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you very much for your work on that. So our next item is consider adopting the Albuquerque Public Schools Board of Education resolution to collaborate with partners on improving outcomes for Indigenous students. And I know they have me listed. No, is that not it? No, I'm sorry, it's the legislative agenda. Consider approval of priorities for the proposed 2024 legislative agenda. We have Dr. Escobedo and Jessica Martinez, Government Affairs. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Chief of Schools, Dr. Segura. The Government Affairs team has been hard at work. We have been in actually Santa Fe today and the rest of the week with the Legislative Education Study Committee. We are preparing for the 2024 regular session, which is a 30-day budget session, which begins on Tuesday, January 16th. The district's top legislative priorities and policy positions have been based on the administration's review, history with us, what we see coming down the line through interim legislative committee meetings, and getting feedback from you, board members, and at board meetings.
And Madam President, through the Q&A, we received a suggestion from the board to include an abbreviated version of the agenda. So we provided an at-a-glance version of the district's legislative priorities. It is at your seats. The legislative agenda has been reviewed by Superintendent Elder and is presented tonight for the board's consideration and approval. And with that, we stand for questions.
Okay, I'll just open it up for some questions. Who'd like to go first? Board Member Peterson.
Jump in. So I'm curious, I was looking, and the upgrade for HVAC systems definitely needed, technology devices definitely needed. It occurs to me, and it does refer to school construction and the shortages for a priority. I'm curious, how far short are we from what we've asked in bond issues for construction and what actual costs are now? Do you know how much of a gap there is in those two things?
Madam President and Board Member Peterson, I think statewide we're seeing up to triple the cost. So for example, Mosquero was rebuilding their K through 12 school. $30 million was the anticipated budget, and I think it came in at over 90 million. So we're seeing those on a little lower scale here, and we can get more details.
Yeah, it seems like this might be a good common ground for everyone statewide. And we have this nice big, excessively large budget right now that probably won't be recurring. So what's the possibility of either the governor or LFC making that a real priority for one-time use of these funds to make up the difference?
Madam President, Board Member Peterson, it's been the topic of discussion all through the interim, as well as today in the LFC, I'm sorry, LESC. I know that LFC discussed it at length. Those committees are urging legislators to prioritize those projects that are kind of hanging in limbo because of the overages of cost. So it's a priority. I know that it's on everybody's mind as we head into the session.
Do you have a sense of what the likelihood is?
No.
I'm going to optimistically say that I think that legislators are aware of the very, very severe need and are thinking through the steps that it will take on their end to make sure that the projects that need funding can be funded. But I would hate to speak for them, of course.
Crystal ball time. Thank you very much. One other thing, I did put in my notes, just really putting in the increase in discretionary dollars, because that would help us so much with collaboration time and how we use the 1140. So that increase, I just hope that we can keep hammering that. But I visited with a group of students at Highland today, and one of their primary asks was class size. class size, and I didn't have to say a word. I just listened to them. And basically what they said is, if you actually care about social emotional learning, if you actually care about how we're doing emotionally, you're going to reduce class size. We have too many kids in classrooms. Teachers don't have time for us. And that's straight from the student mouth. I didn't edit.
I thought that his statement at the end where he said.
Any other board members want to weigh in? Board Member Gonzalez? She went off mute, or no, she's still on mute. No, okay.
Israelis, I think it's a big mistake for you to.
Any other board members have any other things to? So the way that this works, and if I just remember, these will be the high priorities that when we go through the legislative session, these will be the ones that you as a team will be following, along with any particular bills that are being introduced that would be in support of these, right? And working with our legislators. And I know we've got a meeting planned coming up with our legislators. So this would be our platform that we would present with them to discuss what we think is highly important. All right.
I'm just wondering if you're finished.
Go ahead.
In 2 drafts ago, well, I'll scrap that, but I want to put a plug for class size. Starting kindergartners 30 in a classroom is not conducive to retaining teachers or retaining enrollment, right? But I'm wondering, and I'm wondering out loud here, with regard to capital, is it wise for us to make it clear at least the level of need that APS has is $7 billion to get it all done? And if we're talking about costs having increased, I mean, we're just never going to get out of our circumstance. And we need to, because we need to be able to compete. We need to be able to compete fairly. So, and both of those things are important, capital and class size.
So Board Member Dominguez and Board Member Peterson, I mean, if you look at priority 3, we call out smaller class sizes in there as part of the engaged or increased learning opportunities, and smaller class sizes are brought up as a piece of that.
I'm just wondering, is it wise to lay out just what the need is on the capital end?
No.
Yeah, so
we're going to go smaller. We need more school. Well, we don't need more schools.
President Cordova and Board Member Dominguez. So two approaches we are taking with capital. So one is the school construction renovation and inflation stabilization, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the argument is, well, gas prices are coming down. Well, maybe supply prices will come down. So at what point do you pull the lever? So that's the statewide, facility construction, conversation. But we're actually going to also take an aggressive approach with our capital outlay requests. So as you were involved with one of them last year pretty intensively, we will be asking for 2 projects for every school. So one will be a support of a capital master plan priority. So if they are needing security fencing, that could be their priority, or it could be the cost of planning a kindergarten addition to a school. So that is a priority. And then working with the school also, they were able to select another priority of technology, wellness rooms.
Yeah, they had, CMP provided us with a list of 4 options that could be requested this year that do not overlap with previously requested projects.
So separate issues, but kind of trying to tackle the capital need from several different, inputs that we know the legislators have funds for, and we know that capital appropriations will increase for them individually this year as well.
I think it's worth mentioning too that the discussion about capital projects statewide is one that was very much highlighted today at LESC. New Mexico's seeing the lowest pay rate for construction workers, the highest cost of project completion, creating havoc, as you can imagine, but the conversation that legislators are going to need to have about how to meet in the middle with our capital funding is one that they're very much engaged in.
I was in a conversation with our team, and I saw Karen Ellerid was on there, but at a recent review committee or a review meeting for a construction project. And what's evident is that although we have, let's just say 10 projects in the pipeline, or that's what we have projected, we probably have funding for only 5 because we can't do the other 5. And so it's like, how do we stabilize that? And we had gone out and asked to raise the funds to do that. But because of the rising costs, we can't get to those. And Ms. Allery, do you want to describe that further? Because I believe that's part of what the issue is on the stabilization side and asking for assistance on that so that we can finish and get to completion on those projects that we promised the community we would do.
Yes, so I'm not exactly sure of the numbers, but I think that we promised in 2021 to the voters, which they approved, to complete 19 projects. And we'll be lucky if we get through 7 of them. And so what we're thinking on the capital side is that the ideal would be that we would ask for a one-time influx of cash, not through single legislative appropriations, but through an off the top. And we would like it to happen with other districts throughout the state because this has impacted the whole country. The labor shortages, the inflation, the manufacturing delays, everything has led to, at least in our district, a little bit more than doubling the project costs for everything that we build. So what we would like to see is off the top, straight across the board, reduction of all the money that they have donated to this inflation issue. And I noticed Casito just popped on, so if he has anything to add to this, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, board members, Madam President. Just to add to what Ms. Allerid said, failure to do this at some point down the road, the taxpayers will bear the brunt of this because the taxpayers 3 years ago, not just in APS, but over the rest of the state, over the last 3 years have approved school bonds and mill levies for certain amounts of projects, which were estimated at a certain price in the last 3 years. That cost has tripled. And so if those projects are going to be done without any help, it'll be back to the taxpayers to bear the brunt of that issue. And it's even worse with the smaller districts. So it's one of those things with non-recurring funds, if it's possible, to help out in inflation stabilization for all the districts for this capital so that we can continue looking after ourselves moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
So this document that you prepared, which is very thorough and detailed, are the legislators going to have a copy of this before the meeting so they have time to prepare and give us some good feedback? Okay, fantastic.
We'll also be giving them the Emerging Stronger.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we need a motion on this one.
I'll move that we accept the proposed legislative agenda.
Okay.
I will second it.
All right. I have a roll call, please.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. So did we lose the other, or
Yeah, we lost.
we lost Peggy? Okay. Wasn't sure. Okay, so now our next item, sorry about that. Thank you so much. I'm like moving along here, is considering adopting the Albuquerque Public Schools Board of Education resolution to collaborate with partners on improving outcomes for Indigenous students. You have me listed as the presenter on this, and I don't know why I wasn't quite prepared for that. The resolution was drafted, and I'm going to invite Ms. McDonald to come up, or some of your partners to come up, please, to help us a little bit, to explain what this resolution is and how you would like for us to be of assistance with you on this.
Good evening, Madam Chair and honorable board members. Yate Kara Bobroff, Unishe, Ashinashli, Natani Bashishchin. My name is Kara Bobroff, and I serve as the executive director for One Generation, and also as a chair for a National Fund for Excellence in American Indian Education, which is dedicated to improving outcomes for Native students across the country, but also hyper-locally in our city and also with our Native communities. I'm Navajo on my mother's side, born for Lakota on my father's side, and I'm an alumni of Highland High School, Jefferson Middle School, Zia Elementary School, and Alvarado Elementary School. And I'll go ahead and follow protocol to ask the other community members who are here today to introduce themselves, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Exteri washte mindagiabi daiwa chimnaga hudeshna wadopana sasitua wakbetua ikant tuana. Na ia shijaje macha shaji mitawa wayistamak biaje magiabi. My name is Heidi McDonald. I'm the Senior Policy Director for One Generation, and thank you for having us.
Maru Wakana Nania Tatsai, Nanamana Kwahara Matana. I'm Laura Harris. I'm a citizen of the Comanche Nation. I'm Executive Director of Americans for Indian Opportunity, a 50-year-old, more than 50 years old organization that advocates for Indigenous rights. I'm also the current chair of the Native Leadership Collective of Albuquerque, which is made up of 31 Native-led organizations, both national, regional, and local organizations. And I'm also the president of the board of the National Urban Indian Family Coalition. So thank you very much for having us today, Madam Chair and board members.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Kyle Tapa. Those are my clans in Navajo. I'm originally from Window I am a Navy vet. I experienced some homelessness here in Albuquerque, but luckily through organizations, nonprofits, area entities, they helped me get back on my feet. And I work for Americans for Indian Opportunity as an urban indigenous organizer, as well as a co-chair of the Commission on American Indian and Alaska Native Affairs with the city, as well as doing Native American ambassador work with Albuquerque Police Department. So I do a lot of the community building, and I'm here to support Kara Barbroff and Heidi McDonald regarding this proposal.
And what I understand is that this was a proposed resolution just to solidify our partnership that's already in existence. I mean, there's already a lot of work that has gone on. I know I've attended the Indian policy group that I see Mr. Farson out there, and I should invite you up to the table as well. But I mean, so there's already collaboration, and this is just really to just solidify that collaboration and partnership that goes on. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair and honorable board members, that is correct, is to formalize and solidify the work that's been put into action with Mr. Farson and his staff, as well as Superintendent Elder and the community members who attended a variety of different summits and came up with some really good ideas about how we can collaborate and create even stronger attempts to support our Native American students.
I really,
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Board Member Gonzalez.
Sorry, I couldn't see if I was stepping on someone there who was going to speak.
It was just me, Yolanda, but it's all right. Go ahead.
Okay.
Because I know you're both on the back end on this one.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank our guests for joining us tonight and add a little bit of context as well. I think part of the issue that is trying to be solved here is the fact that we, as a district, have now our Emerging Stronger strategic plan. We have the Indian Education Act within our state, which requires us to essentially develop a plan for how we as a district are going to partner with tribal communities to serve the Indian students in our district. And then we also have the recommendations that stemmed from both the first and the second annual Indigenous Education Summits, which I know myself and a couple of other board members, as well as Superintendent Elder, had the opportunity to attend. And so I think in light of those multiple different potentially parallel tracks of the plan, the Indian Education Act, and the recommendations, wanted to make sure that that work moves forward coherently and aligned, and that the district is not working in isolation, but working again with our tribes, working with our Indian Education Department, but also working with partners who are expert in this field, but also expert in community engagement. And so trying to bring all of that stuff together I think is essentially the purpose of the resolution. And I think important to acknowledge too that we are in a moment of transition within our district. And so as we're having transition in both board members and superintendent, again, I think equally important to communicate the importance of staying the course and really focusing on this important issue, again, coherently and with alignment.
Absolutely. And I do want to applaud the group that came together, because I have seen you and have seen you working really closely with our department. And I agree with Board Member Gonzalez, is this opportunity at a time of transition and us needing to pull this all together. And what a fabulous opportunity with that summit and getting all of those pieces pulled together and really coming together, I think, around with APS also on our Emerging Stronger plan that they have, as well as our goals and guardrails. So it is an opportunity for us to have this document that will also solidify for this next superintendent coming in for sure as we move forward. And so I'm going to open it up for the board members. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments on this? Go ahead, Board Member Peterson.
So, yeah, I wasn't able to attend any part of the Indigenous Education Summit this year, but I have in the past, and I'm really impressed with the discussions of pedagogy and what it really means in a practical sense for students. So I appreciate that work, but I also have been truly impressed by the work that Mr. Parson and that department have taken on. I mean, I just see, I've been on the board now it'll be I keep saying 2 months minus 9 years when I step off at the end of December. And the work that is going on right now is qualitatively different from what was going on when I first came on. And I truly applaud that, not just in terms of providing services and support to our students and a real commitment to growing, especially the language component, but also the relationship with tribal governments, that there has never been that level of acknowledgement of the sovereignty of the communities around us and what that means governmentally to governmentally between us. And I really applaud that. So I always have concerns when I look at the expertise and the work that's going on within the district right now, what that means for partnership, and not trying to supplant or work around or undermine the work that is being done right now, but how does it augment and support? But still, I mean, I feel like it's important for the leadership of the Indian Ed Department to stay in leadership in what that means for the district. So I'm just curious how you see that interaction and that work, what it really means in terms of what you can bring to it, and how you do that in collaboration with the work that's going on.
Well, since I represent the collaboration, the Native Leadership Collective, which includes the American Indian Graduate Center, now called Native Scholar Forward, and NAPR, Native American Parents Professional Resource. And so we have expert organizations as a part of our coalition. And we have just been so impressed and appreciative of Phil Farson and the department, including urban leaders and Native-led organizations, to be a part of the reporting, to give us the opportunity to share the Indian Education Act Needs Assessment with our many constituencies. 31 organizations tend to have very large constituencies. And then we're lucky to also have the collaboration of the Albuquerque City Commission on Indian Affairs as well. So we're all about collaborating and being supportive. We want to ensure that this collaboration results in improved student outcomes.
Well, and it certainly is a testament to the fact of what the cry is, right? I mean, the call to action at the whole state level is really around improving our student outcomes. And it sounds like there has been this tremendous collaboration and around and coalition coming together really to support our district. And I agree with Board Member Peterson in terms of calling out our Indian Ed department in terms of the level of engagement that I think has is exponentially gotten so much better. And I also am just going to do a quick shout out for Superintendent Elder for also supporting that, right? Because I think we've had, through his leadership, he's also made that possible for us to make sure that we're engaged at that level and supporting that level of engagement with our tribal leaders and also with community partners such as yourself. So thank you so much for doing that. Are there any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Board Member Jackson.
I'll just say, I think that this resolution is, it's very much in line with improving student outcomes, which is the entire reason that we exist as a school board, is to improve student outcomes. And we have, definitely included those obviously in our goals. And so I think that this resolution aligns with our work, and I'm very much in support of it. And I appreciate the level of detail that was put into it. And I think it is is that your work? Yes. Okay. I saw everybody turn and look at you.
Yes. Ms. McDonald. And I also just want to point out that when the resolution came to us, I sent it off to the department first so that they could take a look at it and actually respond to it and, sort of look at that too. So it wasn't something that was just done in a vacuum without the input from Mr. Farson's review and approval, and also with the superintendent. So I think there was just a minor adjustment made to some language that I think we all agreed to. So I think we're in good shape there. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move for approval to adopt the resolution to collaborate with partners. Am I reading the right one?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. To collaborate with partners on improving outcomes for Indigenous students.
I'll second.
Oh, Daniel, Board Member Gonzalez second. So we had first Tapia Romero and second by Gonzalez, and we'll have a roll call, please.
Danielle Gonzalez.
I'm a yes. I also want to disclose that I am paid staff for One Generation Fund, but also want to acknowledge that there's no exchange of funding as part of this partnership. So there's no conflict.
Okay.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes, thank you. So we have a resolution. Yay.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank you for your service to our community. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for being patient with us. I know it took a while for us to get there. All right, our next item is discussion and also action, and this is consideration for adding an acknowledgement of tribal land to our board education meeting opening. We have had, oh man, I don't have it with me in front of me. Let me see, let me get it here real quick. So I'm proposing this. I had told the board members that I would bring this forward. I would like to add an acknowledgement to tribal lands. We are in a really unique situation in Albuquerque. We serve, I can't even remember the total number. I think it's 22, 23 sovereign nations that are partners with us on this. And also working with the Indian Policy Group, learned something really important about the significant or the unique status that our tribal communities have. They have a unique federal status because they are sovereign nations, and we are a nation amongst many nations. And for me, even though it seems that it may be performative in nature, I think it also helps us communicate from what we believe at the board level down to the school level, that we acknowledge that we're on tribal land and that we acknowledge that we're working in a very unique situation, which makes our community rich and makes our state very rich. And so I am proposing that we add the acknowledgement of tribal land to the board education meeting. It would be the one that I had read many weeks ago, and I am sorry that I don't have it pulled up right away. This is what makes it hard for me. Can you send that to me really quickly? Do you have it, or?
There's a sentence at the bottom.
Is it right at there at the bottom? Okay, there it was. You're right. I got really nervous about this. All right. So what it would read, let's see if I can see this. The acknowledgement would state, we gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. And that's what I am proposing. I'll open it up for discussion or motion.
I
move.
This is long overdue. It's something that we have been working on for a long time. So I would like to move that we approve the land acknowledgement of tribal lands to Board of Education meeting opening.
I'll second.
Question.
And Board Member Gonzalez seconded. So we have a motion and we have a second. Go ahead.
Question.
Sure.
I'm just trying to, I guess, go back to disinformation we've heard through our training through all this. And I guess my main question, because I know we were trying to even change the way our original opening was, from like the moment of silence, the video that we were showing before, to really talk about like what is the intent and how we're going to tie everything together. And I think that's where I feel like we're now going back to what we were, the purpose of what we were trying to do. Like I see the intent behind it and I recognize that, but I just don't know if it necessarily belongs to be stated at every board meeting at the beginning. So I guess I have some reservations there.
And we're asking it to be added to just our regular board meetings. So it wouldn't be at policy meetings or committee meetings, just the regular board meetings on the first and the third Wednesday or whenever, the regular board meetings. And for me, I think personally, I believe it is a statement about our students, because we're acknowledging that amongst us, we have a unique status of students in our district that are part of sovereign nations that that make up our district. And I think it sends a very powerful message to them. I know from our Native American students, what we've often have heard is that they feel that they're not seen, or that they feel that they're invisible, or that they're not part of us in a certain way, or that we haven't acknowledged them and their unique federal status with us within our district. Board Member Jackson, go ahead.
So I wrote down what I wanted to say because I wanted to be very clear and intentional with my discussion. But so I'm just going to start. To me, the road away from student outcomes focused governance is paved with good intentions. A year ago, we all agreed that our school board would become intensely focused on improving student outcomes, and to do so, that we would change our own behavior. To honor that work, one of the first things we did was to reformat our agenda. We removed items that were deemed performative or even partisan and replaced them with a more effective and efficient agenda that focuses on student outcomes and legally required topics. It was hard to give up the agenda items that each of us valued individually, but we did it in order to place significance on the skills of effective governing over the skills of effective campaigning. And we all agreed that when we were on the dais, our role would be to govern. We also agreed that our work with SOFG is to be the voice of the community. What I have heard from the community is a plea to improve student outcomes for our Native American students. And that was also highlighted by the essential collaborative partnership steps that were outlined in the first and second annual Urban Indigenous Education Summit. I know that we are answering those calls with specific intentional focus in our goals, as well as through the resolution to which we all just agreed. We absolutely should be partnering with community organizations to improve the student outcomes of our Indigenous students. And we should use our governing skills to ensure that that happens through direct and focused action. But what we should not be doing is deciding which special recognitions deserve time on the agenda and which do not. Our work towards improving student outcomes is much more valuable than routine recognitions or acknowledgments that ultimately lose their meaning when they become commonplace and ordinary. It is more discourse and performance when what we should be doing is monitoring and improving. I want to be very clear about this. My concern is not about this particular acknowledgement, however well-intentioned and accurate I believe it to be. It is about all of the other requests that will come after it. It is about honoring the work that we all agreed to do and to spend our time intentionally, which means education and improving outcomes has to be our singular focus. When we removed the tribute to our fallen APS military heroes and replaced it with a moment of silence, I was heartbroken, but I understood. If we have a statement, let it be that we are here to honor the children, families, teachers, and staff of APS by providing them with a successful educational outcome. I am asking that we respect our SOFG principles from the dais and continue to use the moment of silence to respect and pay tribute to the issues we personally give value to, and to use the rest of the agenda to focus on student outcomes.
Thank you, Board Member Jackson. Any other comments? Go ahead, Board Member Dominguez.
So we currently have two rituals, our pledge in English and our pledge in Spanish. And those are honorable rituals. What we're lacking is a very significant tribute or honoring of Native Americans. And by golly, we do a lot of business on their land. And I'd like to ask that I don't want to make this performative. I support the land acknowledgement, and I certainly do not want to make it a performative act. And so I am going to stress to staff that I've already talked to that we begin by not only doing a land acknowledgement, but that extends acknowledging that we have families all the way west who I witnessed trying to register their children in our district back in August, and I was appalled. They do not have access to parent view. They don't have access to geocodes. So that what we take for granted. I mean, my granddaughters have absolutely no obstacle registering. And so to me, that land acknowledgement is a constant reminder that we have to do better. It's not just performative. We have to do better.
Thank you. Any other comments? No,
I have
Go
one
ahead.
more, because now I'm trying, because I hear what even Board Member Jackson just said. And she said it a whole lot more eloquently than what I just spoke before. But even the thought was like, is there a compromise of even saying, what if we salute the flag for the state of New Mexico, where we talk about where everyone's included? And we're not having just to identify one set group of individuals, but we're recognizing who we are as a whole, recognizing what the Zia symbol stands for versus having some isolation. That is a thought that came up.
So I just want to make sure I understand. Are you suggesting we do the
We have the pledge that we
to
have,
the
right?
Zia?
Correct. Because I am hearing what everybody's saying, and I realize the importance of making sure that everyone feels that no one is forgotten. Like, that is a terrible way. We don't want to isolate any students of any course, but I hear also what Board Member Jackson's saying is like, how can we make sure that we're including everybody, not just one group of individuals of students that we have at APS?
I'm gonna go out a little bit on a limb because I think the Zia symbol is specific to only a particular tribal community. And so that's the part that I find a little bit difficult, because all we're saying here is that we're acknowledging all the tribal lands. It would just gratefully acknowledge the native peoples on whose homelands we gather. And it's not a tribute to any one particular tribal community. I mean, I think that was how it was selected. So Zia, I think, belongs to Zuni, if I'm not mistaken. I think is to the Zuni piece. So for me, it's more inclusive in stating it this way. Any other comments? I'm going to go ahead and call for the roll call because I think we'll just probably go in circles. I don't know that we're all in agreement, but can I have a roll call vote, please?
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
No.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
No.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes. All right, so the motion carries. Thank you for the discussion. I really appreciate everyone's opportunity. I just appreciate the opportunity for us to take that up. So our next item is my president's report. So I'll just have, it's been a busy couple of weeks for the board and the district. First, I want to congratulate the 3 newly elected board members that come on at the beginning of the new year. Janelle Astorga will be representing District 1, which is the district that I'm currently serving. Renelda Tome Warito will be representing District 2, which was the district that board member Mueller Aragon was representing. And Heather Benavides will be representing District 4, which was the district that board member Peterson was representing. The new board members will spend the next couple of months learning what it means to be a school board member. They will be attending mandatory training by the New Mexico School Board Association and APS onboarding provided by our current board members and staff alike. So I know some of us have been contacted for that. They will be sworn into office on Wednesday, January the 3rd here in our boardroom. We look forward to transitioning these new board members. It's guaranteed to be an eye-opening experience. I'm sure we're going to have some changes. And right now, I just want to thank board members Peterson and Mueller Aragon for their years of service to the students and the staff of Albuquerque Public Schools. They've done an admirable job. I've came on with these 2 women when I was appointed, and both have been extremely helpful to me and my knowledge and the things that I learned as a result of working with you. And I think just over the last couple of years with our new board members that we've had that joined us after that. They and I will be wrapping up our time on the board in just a few weeks. Our last meeting will be on Wednesday, December the 20th. And it will be preceded by a reception at 3:30 p.m. here at APS, the Administration Building. There'll be some more information to come, so hopefully some of our friends from staff and the community will come to join us for that. But we're also going to take a moment to reflect on our, the members that are coming off, but we've also invited the new board members to that reception so that we could also have that as a transitional piece. I also want to take a moment to provide an update on the superintendent search. We had about 100 people took part in the community conversations with board members on Monday at West Mesa, and thanks to all who participated and shared their thoughts on the characteristics of the next superintendent. And I'd like to thank board members Peterson and Gonzalez, who did a fantastic job of leading the conversation and facilitating that meeting. So if you missed Monday's conversation, you still have another chance to participate. Board members Jackson and Tapia Romero will be facilitating the next meeting and conversation at Manzano High School tomorrow night beginning at 6 p.m. We will be gathering the input shared during these conversations and also through the online survey, another board outreach, and the superintendent search firm, which will put together a report for us in December. So if you are doing some outreach events and you've got some input, I believe, get them over to Johanna. And we're gathering that up so that we can also get those to Dr. Cooper. So if you haven't already completed the survey, the online survey, I encourage you to do so. It is posted on the APS website at aps.edu, and the deadline is next Wednesday, November the 22nd. That's hard to believe. It's already the end of November. And if you know anyone who is interested in leading this wonderful school district that I've had the privilege to be a part of for the last 6 years, tell them that the job application for the superintendent's job is open until December 12th, and the link is also on the APS website. I just want to thank everybody for sticking with us tonight. It's only 7:25. That's actually pretty good. So we covered a lot of ground tonight, and so with that, our next meeting, the next Board of Education meeting will be December 6th, 2023 at 5 p.m. That's right. And the next special Board of Education meeting will be November 29th, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. or immediately following the Finance Committee meeting. Meetings will be held here in the Allison Bruce King Educational Complex. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, ladies